Hey, how you doing? I hope you're well. I'm Deanna and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do my May wrap up. Yes, this is very delayed, but hey, better late than never. This will be the first of like 3 wrap-ups you're going to get back to back while I catch myself up. And May ended up being my best reading month like ever, which is probably why I put off filming this for so long. So without further ado, let's get into the reading stats. Now, as I mentioned, this was the best reading month I've had ever, and I read 21 books, which is just crazy to me. Those 21 books took place over 8,650 pages, and despite having a crazy high number of books to read, I had an average rating of 4.5 stars, which is just incredible. So to break that down for you, I had 1 3-star, 6 4-star, 7 4.5 star, and 7 5-star reads. Let's dive into some other stats. So for genres, I was clearly having a moment of reading comfort things. So I read 4 fantasy romance, 4 Omegaverse, 4 paranormal, and 4 fantasy. All of those got 4, and I read 5 romance books. So pretty evenly split across my go-to genres. For formats, I read 4 ebooks, 12 audiobooks, 4 ARCs, and 1 paperback. And then having a look at my series versus standalone, we come to this rather lovely pie chart which shows that I read 5 first books and 16 sequels, and that is the kind of percentage gap we'd like to see between first books and sequels. So hopefully I can keep that momentum up, but you'll see sooner rather than later. So 21 books, that is a lot to talk about, and you know I love to ramble. So in the month of May, I did do my latest episode of the Completion Chronicles, where my goal was to read the final books in trilogies. It's a vlog, so it's got all like my in-depth thoughts and things, so I'll leave that up above and linked below, and will direct you to find out my full thoughts on the following books, just in the interest of saving time here. So the books I read in that vlog was The Bronze Beast by Roshani Chokshi. This is the final book in the Gilded Wolf series. It is phenomenal. It is a very lush urban fantasy, YA fantasy, one of my all-time favorite casts of characters. If you love that kind of found family with a sprinkle in of like myth and folklore, I think you'll absolutely love this one. I then finished off the Mead Mishap series and read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human by Kimberly Lemming. If you like the idea of a rom-com that's also a fantasy romance, I think this is fantastic. The talking sword in here might have to be my favorite element of the story. We also have a dragon who gets drunk in an accident and vows to rescue this woman here, and he accidentally mates with her super early and now is on a group chat with his mates, heroes from book 1 and 2, trying to navigate how to make their relationship work, and it is hilarious and delightful. I then read Alcott Hall by Emily Rath. This is the 3rd and final book in her Second Son series. It's a spin-off from the first 2 books, and we're following Madeline, who's in a bit of a pickle. She is a bit socially awkward and hasn't been doing well since debuting, and that's fine. She's kind of content with the fact that she may become a spinster until it's discovered that an eccentric aunt has left her an inheritance, and to get that she needs to get married, but her family are not super interested in helping her because if she doesn't meet the deadline, the inheritance rolls over to them. So she hightails it up to Alcott Hall, where her friend Rosalind and the Duke, Captain Renly, and Burke are, and enlists their help in playing matchmaker to find a husband. And it's an MMF romance and was so good. I then picked up The Sanctuary with Kings, which is part of the Tempting Monsters series by Catherine Moon. If you love the idea of like a Victorian setting, think like Penny Dreadful, why choose romance? This one is a little bit more plot forward than the other books in the series, and we do have a lot of exploration of healing, which I really did appreciate. Also, the fact that she's put like a different group of monsters in each of these books is wild to me, and I love learning about all these monsters she's included. I then picked up Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. This is from her Spoiler Alert series. We're following 2 plus-size characters who were co-stars in a Game of Thrones like TV show. They had a one-night stand which ended poorly, and then were forced in close proximity with each other for the duration of the TV show. The final season's wrapping up, no one's happy, and they don't want to lose each other from their lives. Relationships happen, feelings happen. It gets a little messy, but we get there in the end. I then picked up A Soul for a Witch by Harley LaRue, and this might be my favorite book in the series. We are following Everly, who is a Laverne witch, and she has been roped in by this cult to help raise this fallen god pretty much against her will. And then we have Callum, who is the embodiment of psychotic golden retriever vibes, and he is an archdemon who is a bit disenchanted with hell after the big battle between the fallen gods, and how he felt like the loss of his people and his warriors wasn't handled with respect and was kind of brushed under the rug. He has this kind of like Howl's Moving Castle, find me in the future vibe with Everly, and has been looking for her ever since. Completely loved it. I love the fact that this entire series centers around that main focal point of the fallen god, and we just see how each of the three couples interacts with that. We get to go to the demon realm, which was super fun, and I just love Harley LaRue, and at this point anything she writes I'm reading. Last but not least from that vlog is Darn It All by Evie Mitchell, which is currently the third book in her all access series. I'm not sure if she has any more planned, but this series has been beautiful. Evie Mitchell does write these really light-hearted, lovely, humorous rom-coms which do pack a lot of heart, and this series in particular has a lot of disability rep, and we're following Mai and Theo, who are friends who become something more. Theo has a prosthetic leg, Mia has really crippling anxiety, and the pair of them have this beautiful friendship which we get from the get-go. And Theo pushes Mai into joining a reality competition, kind of like Project Runway. However, didn't read the fine print because Theo is not one to slow down and smell the roses, and realizes that it's supposed to be for couples. So they decide to fake date to get onto the TV show, and it was so much fun. I think that's the most succinct I've ever been, so let's see if that will continue. Probably not though. But anyway, those were the books that I read for completing trilogies. So I managed to wrap up 7 series in that particular vlog. So if you want more of my thoughts, less coherent, more rambly, you can go check that out. As I said, I'll leave that up above and linked below. Diving into the other books I read that month. I did finish off The Prophecy of the Forgotten Fae by Tessania Odette. This is the first book, but I did read A Cage of Crystal, Fate of Flame, and I also read the prequel, Heart of Thorns. This is a YA fantasy series which follows predominantly a girl named Cora who is a witch. She is I forget the exact type of witch, like what witch form she has, but she is a empath. She has run away 5 to 6 years earlier. We don't really know why at the start of the novel, and has found her place with the forest people, and they are protecting her. They're teaching her magic, but they're also protecting her from her past. Things get a little bit out of hand when a friend of hers decides that she wants to meet up with a nearby soldier. So her and her friends go to this hot springs so that her friend can hook up with the soldier. From there, we realize that he is a soldier of Duke Mordecai, and that is the person that Cora has been avoiding. They get captured. We find out that Duke Mordecai has this unicorn hunting ring, and unicorns haven't been seen on this land for over 500 years. And Cora protects the unicorn, and her and Valor, the unicorn, decide that they are going to go and save his brethren from being captured. We kind of flash forward to another part of the world where we have Terran, and he is the son of a king who tried to pull a Henry VIII and depose his wife to instill his mistress on the throne, but it backfires, and his wife's allies fight up, and the wife keeps her throne. So this civil war has basically bankrupted his kingdom, and he is hoping to marry Merlot, who is a princess of a neighboring kingdom, who kind of has this very flamboyant, think Marie Antoinette, Louis the Sun King type of court. It's very that height of French Renaissance. However, Merlot doesn't really want to marry Taran. She is in love with his half-brother, but was told she's not allowed to marry him because he's a bastard, and that's Laralus, I should say, and is basically told that she's unable to rule the throne in her own right because her uncles will off her, so she needs to marry. She's been dragging her feet and doesn't really want to pick someone to marry, so invites all the eligible lords and princes and all that jazz to the kingdom, and the idea is that they're going to go on a heart's hunt. So they've read a poem to her, and they're supposed to woo her in this like display. Her heart's hunt is supposed to be something like find a blue rose or whatever. Merlot decides that she is going to do everyone one better, and she wants them to bring back 3 unicorns. One she wants the pelt from, one she wants the horn of, and the other one she wants to befriend. So Taran, along with Prince Helios and another prince, end up getting roped into unicorn hunting, and they've got like a month or something to go get it. And the story kicks off from there. This is fantastic, and it gives me the same vibes as those YA fantasy series that I love, like Throne of Glass, the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo, and also the Moorhawk trilogy by Celine Kirian. This was a series I loved as a kid. Where we start here and where we the end is very different. There are some interesting turns that the book takes. You think, oh, you know, you've kind of got this story, you know what's going to happen, but particularly in the second book, that was really interesting, and especially what happens to Taryn. Merlot, as I mentioned, is a character that I could not stand from the first book. She comes across as this vapid, self-centered princess, but the more we get from her point of view and the more that her and Cora interact and she lets her vulnerabilities down, we realize that, you know, she's not too bad. She's just putting up a front, and her strength that she wields is very different to the strength you get in someone like Cora, who is like our typical like badass, powerful witch assassin type character. Merlot wields her power in court intrigue and scheming and gossip, and it's just quite beautiful, and very satisfied with how this series wrapped up. And I think Velour, the unicorn, might be my favorite animal companion. He has the biggest crush on Taryn, and I completely loved it. So if you're in the mood for a really complicated and beautifully told YA fantasy, this is an upper YA fantasy, so we do have some steamy scenes, but it's not graphic in nature, and it's kind of told in that lyrical style of something like a Sarah J Maas, and it doesn't happen until like later on in the series, but highly recommend. It's beautiful. We start quite insular, focusing on Cora and her story, and as it progresses we get this wider look at this world, and it ends in like a big battle saving the day, and completely adored it. I'm so glad I tried something different from Tessania Odette, and it just makes me so excited to dive into the rest of her back catalogue. Then I picked up Ruins of Starlight by B.C. Fajon, which is the first book in this Celestial Devotion series. I did get a review copy of this one, and in fact I think I got the review copy like late last year, but she got picked up by an indie press, so it was a bit delayed, and this sounded really cool. We had like this dark fantasy world that felt a bit more like, what do they call it, like lamplight, gas lamp fantasies, like kind of that Victorian gritty era, rather than like your medieval, for example. We're supposed to have like shadow creatures, and I struggled with reading this one. I don't know what it is, because on page it seemed to have everything I wanted. I originally picked this one up in February, trying to read it before publication date, and I just read maybe 20%, and every time I put it down, I just didn't want to pick it back up. Then I picked up the audiobook once it came out, and I started it from the start. And we are following a girl called Morgana whose world is shattered once her brother goes missing. Her and her brother have been on the run, and she has lost her brother in the sinister badlands of Vesperia, and she has joined the ranks of the Umbran Guard, which is what her brother was before he disappeared, in hopes of finding answers, because she's been told that he's like dead, but there's no body, and she just doesn't really believe anything that anyone's saying. She does cross paths with Aster Sinclair, who is the shadow cursed prince, who at this particular point the royalty and the monarchy are known to be cursed, and no one actually knows who they are. The king is holding on for dear life, and no one knows really about the princes and princesses. So she gets wrapped up with him, and they make a deal that she will help him find a cure for her curse in the form of this mirror, and he will help her find what's happening with her brother. The ending was quite, from memory, there was a big twist in the ending. I did enjoy, like when I was reading it, I was enjoying the world, but it was very much like a mid book, and for the life of me, that's all I can really remember. I mean, admittedly, I am filming this wrap up like 2 months late, but even if I was to film this at the end of May, I was kind of like, it just didn't hit for me. I will say that. But if it sounds like your thing, and maybe I've read too many fantasy romances at this stage that it felt not different enough, so it could be a me thing, but if it sounds like that would be something you're interested in, the audiobook was relatively quick, and it does end up on a big cliffhanger, so yeah. Next I picked up Would You Die With Me by L.A. Cannon, and I really should be smiling because she loves to write an angsty, dark romance, and this one does hit hard on the angst, the dark, and is super toxic. And this is the final book in her Artificial Suicide series, so we're wrapping up Noah and Kai's story. So this is the last bit of a very toxic, dark, friends to lovers to enemies to lovers romance, and we're following these two boys, Kai and Noah. At the start of this book, they have been estranged after hooking up again for a little bit after their big breakup. Kai, something traumatic happened in his childhood, which we got hints at in Noah's book, because this story is told in a really interesting way where the past chapters, or them growing up, is told exclusively from Noah's point of view, where the present day chapters are told from Kai's point of view, with some exceptions thrown in between. But we really get hit home that the things we thought were happening actually did happen to Kai, and because they were kids and he didn't really know how to explain what was happening to him, it led to some miscommunication and him just going on a self-destructing spiral of sex, drugs, just anything super dangerous. So at this point, Kai has kind of got his shit together, and he's the drummer of a metal band called Artificial Suicide, and he has pretty much pushed everybody away. He's given up substances and is doing everything he can to just soldier on and survive. Their band is going through a bit of a rough spot as their lead singer has been charged with sexual assault. They've got a big tour coming up, and the label doesn't want to lose money, because labels are a business and it's all about money, 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 and wants to distance the band from this asshole. That they put on auditions, and who happens to audition and obviously get the job except for Noah, and they're forced back into proximity with each other, and there are some like hot hate scenes. They finally do break down and just talk about what's happening. Noah has a lot of guilt around not being there for Kai after he realizes what happens. LA Cannon always handles these kind of dark mental health topics with a lot of respect, and she does make it hurt, but the HEA is so worth it. And I just adored how their relationship unfolded. This one, as opposed to the first one, it does have a lot of music elements to it, which, you know, I love for a rockstar romance. So they're on tour. We've got them traveling from location. They're rehearsing for the upcoming tour because obviously Noah's new to the band, so they have to get their synergy together. They're on stage. We have stalkers. You know, it's all the goods. Not the stalkers, but the rest of it is all the stuff I love in a rockstar romance. So if you're in the mood for an romance, which is toxic as hell, dark, which will stomp on your heart before trying to piece it back together, highly recommend this duology. Then I finished off the Arrowheart Academy series by Hannah Hayes by reading Destined Dawn. I won't say too much about this one because this is the 5th book in this paranormal series, but I think this ended up phenomenally. I really enjoyed how it wrapped up for Ree and her guys. I know people don't like an epilogue, but we do get 2 epilogues, and I enjoyed that we got their HEA, but also we got a glimpse at what's happened to the world after the dismantling of this totalitarian regime. I will say, I think she does a fantastic job throughout the series of balancing Ree's relationship with the 5 guys. This woman writes my perfect books. These books are like crack to me. Yeah, there's so much spoilers here, but just know that Pip, my poor precious baby, I sobbed for you. It was a lot of high stakes, but the payoff was so worth it. We'd been building up throughout the series, and they said that HEA was just fantastic. And I do love the fact that, and I know I've said it before in other books series, like from memory, like the Scarlet St. Clair, that I enjoyed that we got to see Hades and Persephone's like HEA, but we've just destroyed this world order. Like, how are we moving forward? And we didn't get a glimpse of that. So I enjoyed that we got a look into the idea that they're rebuilding and that everything is much better now. I then picked up Be With Me by Gabriella Sanz, which is the first book in her House of Ferrero, and I say this every time, but I just think that Gabriella Sanz writes my perfect books, and she just gets better and better, and it's almost like she's like reading into my brain to know what I want to read. I was not at all interested in picking up the Ferrero books because of what I've seen from them, especially in When She Loves and the Fallen God duology. They were ruthless. The only book I was interested in is the younger brother. He was the only one I was interested in, but the other 2 did not give a shit about. Tell me why this man, Rom, has now become like my perfect man, and he is everything. This is very much a like star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet vibes. We have Rom, who is the fixer of the Ferreros. Think you're like Kerry Washington from Scandal. I think that's the actress's name, but he deals in information, and his job is to make sure that the family survives. So at the moment, they and the rest of the New York underground are under heat as a politician, Morales, is running, and his whole shtick for his election is that he's going to crack down on organized crime. So Rom has been tasked by his father and really his mother, who was like, I don't know if anyone is seeing Mobland, but I'm watching at the moment. The mother gives me Maeve vibes. Like, the dad may be in charge, but she is the unhinged authority behind the throne, and I cannot fucking stand her. That woman should never have been a parent, and what she did to Rom growing up and how she twisted him, my heart still breaks for him. Anyway, We love a tortured bad boy with a tragic backstory. That's why I love him. So he's been tasked with finding out a way to undermine Morales's election. And then he finds a loophole in Mia, and Mia is best friends with Fabi, who is his brother's arranged bride, and he is trying to get close to her to manipulate her to spill secrets. But the closer he gets to her, the more he realizes that she is purely innocent. Mia is a stylist, and her business is currently failing because of her father's political campaign. Her stepmother has had a stroke and is dealing with a lot of feelings about her body and not looking the way she wants to look, and not feeling well. So Mia has been roped into every element, every luncheon, every dinner, every prep rally for this campaign, which is at the detriment of her own business. She doesn't get any say, she's got zero agency, but she is such a people pleaser that she just does whatever her dad says. She's kind of given herself this mental timeline that, hey, the election is only a couple more weeks, like just gotta push through it, even to the point where she doesn't get invited to Fabi's, her best friend's engagement party, and she finds out and she's super upset because her brother is Raphael and the head of the Mazzarillo family, and people have been keeping secrets from her. So Rom is trying to get information out of her, but he kind of has this conscience of like, oh shit, she is like too pure and too innocent for this, that I don't want to break her. There is a electrifying chemistry from the pair of them, and they have like kind of this one moment and they both decide like, let's just get it out of our systems and it'll be fine. And Rom again has these like feelings of like he's going to sully her with his darkness. And we find out that Mia has a chronic illness, which I did enjoy that representation in here. She gets migraines, pain, that kind of thing, especially when she's quite stressed, which, you know, she is. Her business is failing and she has to be available, and her life's been dictated to her by her father's campaign manager. So there is this beautiful moment in here where Rom is like watching the campaign, trying to like see if there's any in, because he's really fucked up by not exploiting Mia like he should have, and his mum in particular is going to have his fucking head on a pike. So he's watching, trying to figure out what's happened, and he notices Mia isn't doing well. She looks like crap. She's clearly going to pass out. And there's this moment of him being like, well fuck, if she's not going to take care of herself and no one else is going to take care of herself, I guess I am. And he has this like kind of very grumpy exterior where he like needles her into like resting and things like that, and it was just fucking phenomenal. These two are like literally perfect for each other. They balance each other out. The way I would die for both of these, and the way I want to reread this right away. I am very excited. I think we're getting Cosmo and Fabi's story. I don't know if it's going to be a two-parter, but I'm very excited to see what happens there, because we've got another arranged marriage. The grand gesture scene in here lives in my brain rent-free. Just know I'm obsessed, and if you're at all into dark romance, if you're all into mafia romance, if you're all into just like bad boy heroes with a tortured past who fall hard and become the softest marshmallow for their little ray of sunshine, I think you should pick this book up. Also, it's set in New York. I love a big city setting. I'm not a small town girl. I love a big city book, so this just ticks all my boxes, and I will forever love everything Gabrielle Sands writes, and I will never shut up about her. I was coming closer to Babe, so I wanted to pick up some books by authors who were going to be there, and especially authors who I'd stuck a pre-order on. So I did pick up some Omegaverse, because when am I ever not in the mood for an Omegaverse? And I picked up I Think Not, which is the first book in the Not Yours series by Sinclair Kelly. I really enjoyed it. We've got these two social media influencers. So we have Bexley Carter, who is an Amiga. She herself has been wanting to avoid anything to do with packs or relationships after seeing what's happened to her family members when their packs have been destroyed. I think it's her elder sister. Her alphas died in a car accident, and that almost destroyed her sister. So Bexley's whole thing is that she doesn't ever want to be that vulnerable to someone ever, which relatable, that's kind of scary. And she has created a social media platform where she advocates for Omegas to, it's almost like a version of like feminism, like you are more than just being the Omega in a pack and being a homemaker. If you don't want that life, that's totally fine. Choice is yours. Sorry, it's her best friend who she almost lost, not her sister. But anyway, she's basically wanting to take control of her life and her destiny and being seen more than just her designation, which I loved to see. And then we've got the Ride and Alpha group, which is a pack of Shaw, Hawk, Crew, Axton and Camden, and they kind of giving like, this is why packs work, and they're trying to like sell the traditional pack dynamic. And obviously they have a bit of a rivalry online. They will post backwards and forwards in relation to something that the others have posted, and the fans kind of all eat it up, and they're at this fan convention and they have a honest chat about what's happening. The guys pretty much realize straight away that they are like scent compatible, and Bexley herself goes into heat, and they realize obviously social media is very scripted, very constructed. It is a very curated look at someone's life and what they want to present. And I think it was beautiful to see that actually the messaging that both the alphas had and Bexley is the same. They just presented it in a different way. And they're both wanting to ensure that people find the right people and they're making a right choice. They're not these alphas who demand that their Amiga are like barefoot and pregnant, but they want to promote that there's nothing wrong with choosing pack life. And I think it was a great way, because you've got such a curated look, it's easy to like feed into prejudices from each side and insecurities about what that looks like, and having them be in forced proximity with each other makes them really realize that they do want the same things. And it was just a really fun ride, so bingeable, and I'm so excited that I did put on this really massive pre-order at Babe for Sinclair Callie, because I can just tell she is going to be a fantastic me Omegaverse author, and I'm excited to get to the rest of the books in the series, which is not a chance and not my problem. And I think we've got Arden's book next, which is going to be a second chance, because obviously she's the one who lost her alphas in the car accident, and her son as well. It was quite heartbreaking. I then picked up the Dylan St. James duology by Elizabeth Dare. This is Omega Concealed and Omega Revealed, and I love Elizabeth Dare. She seems to do Why Choose Romance with kick-ass heroines, and Dylan St. James is like the baddest bitch going around. In this Omegaverse world, we do have a bit more of that traditional, I guess, Omegaverse where it's a bit dark. There's a lot of commentary on how Omegas have lost bodily autonomy and they're seen as just baby making factories, which, you know, in this day and age and some of the conversations happening is a little too close to home and a little scary. But this is set in the States, I believe, in Texas, I'm pretty sure, and Dylan St. James is an Omega, which is something that she is terrified for, because at this point they've got a government set up for Omegas, and the idea is that they will be sold off to the closest pack. Luckily for her, her parents are ex-military and run an operation where they are hired by Omegas to get themselves out of abusive relationships, and they're broken out of their abusive relationship and taken across state lines to find a new life. We open this with a heist, basically, where Dylan and her family are going ahead to break out this girl who is one of her adopted sister's friends, Sally, and she is in high school. Like, she might be 17 or 18, and they're from like the middle lower class, I guess, and a pack from the, you know, the prestigious richy hoity-toity area has offered to court her, and things go a little bit south when they realize Sally hasn't shown up for school in a couple of days. So Dylan, her brother Derek, and their little sister, who is so funny, she just Daisy, she just wants to blow shit up all the time, and I love her for that, break into this mansion, take Sally, and she's taken across state lines and is going to get, you know, suppressants to suppress her scent, be given the chance to make a decision on what she wants to do with her life, and have her late teenage years and her early 20s to do whatever the hell she wants. Things go a little bit pear-shaped when the Bryce pack work in private security, and they've been hired by Sally's pack to find out what's going on. The pack sells it as like she's been stolen and they want their Amiga back, and they're very worried about her. The closer the Bryce pack has a look at things, they realize that maybe everything wasn't happy at home, and things like there's locks on Sally's door and chains on her bed, that maybe Sally's in a better place now. They question the St. James family, and the St. James family are very tight-lipped, and once they realize what the operation is, they're very intrigued. Now, the Bryce pack consists of two brothers, Austin and Seth, who are both alphas, and a beta named Cam, who is with Seth, and I love Cam. He's like this big ray of sunshine, and he's beautiful. They're very intrigued by Dylan from the get-go. Dylan wants nothing to do with pack life, having seen the absolute horrors of what's happened, and the first time she went into heat, alphas were breaking into their house, and her parents had to kill a couple people to like stop her from being assaulted. So it is quite a dark world that they live in, and the Bryce's family is quite high up and rich. They're trying to make friends with this Van Holt's family and are trying to convince them to add one of their sons into the pack. He's the biggest creep. He just wants to sleep with Cam, and then he's intrigued by Dylan. But overall, I completely love these cast of characters and love the action that we get in here. I'm very excited to read the spin-off, which is going to focus on Serafina, who is Austin and Seth's sister. So highly recommend if you're in the mood for an Omegaverse with an absolute kick-ass heroine who proves that you can do whatever you want no matter what society thinks you're supposed to be able to do. Then I wanted to try some more Sinclair Kelly, so I picked up He's So Slick, which is the first one in her Not Pucking Mine Omegaverse, and this is a series I've had my eye on since Jess, one of my absolute beautiful friends from Instagram. Jess is fully booked, was raving about this one day. So this is a Omegaverse hockey romance. In here we have a builder pack situation. We've got the Omega daughter of the owner of the Phoenix Heat Hockey Club, and she basically wants nothing to do with hockey people, and she's off living her life. She's sworn off jocks. She's in college at the moment, and her dad insists that she comes home for a visit. He's got this big gala happening, and she can't really say no even though she wants to, and there she makes a stupid decision. During the gala, she and the Heat captain end up in a compromising position, and we have, very interesting here, we have a male Omega as well, which is a dynamic I haven't read. So in this pack we've got 2 Omegas, 2 Alphas, and he didn't know he was an Omega, thought he was a Beta, so he's late presenting, he's been really stressed and stuff. So she helps him through his heat with the help of his best friend, which he's been in love with for the longest time. And then we've got Nash, who is from a rival hockey team, and he is also interested in our main girl, and I love that builder pack element. They're kind of thrust into this like scent match. We've got Omegas, Heats flying around everywhere. We've got Ziggy and Porter, who've been like best friends forever, and they develop a sexual relationship as well because they've always cared for each other, and I completely ate this up. This was just so consumable. I'm fascinated by these characters and how they make it work, and I'm very excited to dive into the rest of this series. I just think she puts crack in these pages, and I'm obsessed with her Omegaverse. Also, need more Rex with more male Omegas, because that was an interesting dynamic. Then I picked up gaming with the Gargoyle in Hallow's Cove, which is in the next book in the Hallow's Cove series, which it's like a small town monster romance collection which features a whole bunch of different authors. This entry, I should say, was by Cass O'Shire, and we had been hinted at this relationship from the other books. The Gargoyle, Gabe, is friends with the characters from the previous 2 books, and he has realistically been in love with Gwen for the longest time, and they have been best friends forever. I loved seeing their history in particular as part of like this grand gesture. He gives her letters that he wrote to her every day while he was in Europe studying, and it just, it melted my heart. Gwen is a plus size character. I would say she's probably mid-sized character. She's kind of dealing with her parents' illness, and then was sad with the fact that Gabe had moved overseas, that she was kind of stuck and didn't really know what happened. And when Gabe's older brother shows her some interest, she is young, dumb, flattered that someone's taking interest in her, and they get married very quickly. That guy is an absolute dirtbag, and we find that out from the previous books. He has since passed away. He has 2 wives currently, and she is struggling with what to do because he owns the game shop. So in Hallow's Cove, her and Gabe own this board game D&D style shop. Gabe is a game designer, and they're just nerdy, and they match each other's freaks so well, and I love them. So Gwen's really not sure what to do. She's feeling quite sick about it. She's been avoiding the house that her husband had bought for her and living in the apartment above the shop with Gabe, and Gabe is trying to figure out when it's the right time to make his move. They look at the will and they realize that the other wife is quite high powered from his same lofty circles and will have a kick-ass lawyer, so she's trying to figure out what possibly can she do to be able to keep her shop. And there is some wording in the will that it goes to, this guy was like super fixated on having kids, and so there's wording in the will that it would go to like if she had a kid, but it didn't say his name specifically. It did say like the surname. So Jake was kind of like, well, you just have a kid with Gabe, and then that meets the, you know, the stipulations of the will. And then they were all like, ha 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 ha, wouldn't that be funny? And then it gets in Gwen's head. She's like, what if I had a kid with Gabe? So this one is full heavy on the breeding kink, but it tells you pretty much up front that it's like a baby making pact. I did enjoy watching this excuse of having a baby to save the shop as a reason for them to actually explore their dynamic. I am just fully obsessed with this series. It's not my favorite in the series so far, just because I'm not a big fan of like breeding kink and like pregnancies and romances, but I think it worked out really well for Gabe and Gwen, and they are just so nerdy and I love them. It was interesting to see with gargoyles how the mating bond different from the other creatures we'd met, and it was because of their like kind of longevity that their bond clicked in so quickly. And I love the fact that Gabe is a gargoyle, so he turns to stone during the day, but he will just pose in the shop and then just becomes like a statue propped for them, and he's kind of like asleep but aware. We've got nerdy characters, I would say plus size, mid-size female main character, both finally diving into a relationship that they've wanted forever, and it was very cute. And then last but not least, I finished up the Kingdom of Lies series by Stacia Stark, and I read A Crown This Cold and Heavy and A Queen This Fierce and Deadly, and my god, I cannot believe I put off reading the last two books in this series for the longest time. The first book, A Court This Cruel and Lovely. I cannot tell you anything about these final two books because it will be massive spoilers. Like with most fantasy romance series, where we were in book one and where we ended up is nowhere near where it happened. I just love watching Priska, who is our female main character. So in this world, the idea is that when you are born, you give up your magic as part of like a christening ritual, and then you grow up, and if you've done some good stuff, the church and the head of state, the crown, will gift you some magic abilities. Anyone who is found to have not given up their ability as a child, not even as a child, as an infant, is considered, I can't remember exactly the wording, but they're like considered to be cursed, and they will be round up and burnt at the stake. Priska is one such person who has kept her ability, and she has the ability to freeze time. Now, her mother is very strict with her and is like, do not do anything, do not say anything, be the best you can. Like, it's given very Elsa, like conceal, don't feel, like squash it down, just don't talk about it, it doesn't happen, and just once you hit that age and they magically gift you back your ability, you'll be fine. However, at the very start of the series, one of her friends or like colleagues is about to be sexually assaulted, so she uses her ability to save her from the assault. However, instead of being thanked for saving this girl, she is then handed over to the police and she is on the run. And while she's on the run, she bumps into a group of mercenaries who save her, and they crack up a deal that she will help them sneak into the kingdom, to the capital city, and they will teach her how to use her ability and help her survive in the first trek of, you know, being on the run. We find out so much about her history and what's going on and her magical ability, and where we see her at the start of the series, and the amount of growth that she's had is phenomenal. I can just feel the pressure she's under. Like, she's just one person and she has all these decisions to make, you know, that whole like classic chosen one trope where like anything she does is either going to make or break the situation, and it all rests on her shoulders. Thankfully, she does have Lorien, who is one of my favorite fantasy romance boyfriends. He is known as the bloodthirsty prince. He is considered to be this like mercenary his brother sends out to go all like crazy, and is like this boogeyman horror story. And we just see the horrors that he's had to inflict by having that title and being used as that enforcer, and I loved their strength together. We've got other characters who I'm fascinated with. One of them in particular, I think she's getting the spin-off series. Dina is getting the spin-off series, and I love her. Like, we meet her in book one and she's an absolute bitch as like the queen's head ladies in waiting, and then the journey they've gone on together is incredible. I think this is the first time it's in these two books where I've read a naval battle. Like, I'm talking like full like Spanish Armada against the British naval battle, because they've got to get access to the like dome that protects the realm, but the line that they need to get to is on the ocean. So we get this like full like pirate style battle across the sea, which I love. Again, the happily ever after for all the characters feels very satisfying, and we get to see glimpses of what's going to happen in the future. So absolutely devoured it. It is so captivating. I would at one stage be interested in rereading the series back to back to back. I did read the first two like June, July last year, and then finished this off in May. So I will say I didn't feel like I missed too much. Like, there was enough signposting throughout the books that jogged my memory, but I would be interested to like binge read them back to back, because it's just such a cool concept, very interesting world, and yeah, fully obsessed now with Stacia Stark. Very excited to pick up the spin-off series, This Vicious Dream, which is the first book in the Kingdom Kingdom of Death series, and I think she's also got like Deals with Demons, which is potentially an urban fantasy paranormal, which I'm interested in, and she's got like a Roman or Greek antiquity inspired book coming out shortly, which sounds amazing. But basically, I'm obsessed with Stacia Stark at this point in time, and I did get to meet her. She was so lovely. I really should have bought the special editions of this series, but I withheld. So if I ever see her at another event, you best believing that I will be picking up special editions of this series. There you have it. That is my thoughts, feelings of the 21 books that I read in May. 21 books is wild, and I cannot believe that I did that. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to do that again, but I think I had such good momentum with the challenge of finishing series that I just was like on a roll. So there you go. Comment down below and let me know what your favorite read of May was, or you can leave me a, let's go with some kind of hockey emoji for he's so slick. If you'd like to see more content from me, please like and subscribe. I'll be posting new videos every Sunday, or at least that is the goal. Linked in the description box below will be links to these books, reviews if I have them, and links to my social media channels if you'd like to talk to me or follow me on any other corner of the internet. Anyway, that's it for me today, guys. I hope you're doing all kinds of well, and I'll speak to you soon. See ya!